Hey, high school football fans, I'm Francis Beck. Alongside me is Tom Prince, and we're here to talk about Class A1 in our official 2022 Class A1 football preview. Tom, let's jump right into it. Class A is 3 divisions this year, so we're going to start in A1 with a team that's coming down. They've been in AA for a while.
This is in AA2, this division? I would think it's AA2 is what it is.
I know.
I'm of course kidding, but go ahead. You were starting with Clarence right here.
We could talk about AAAs, but we don't have enough time for that today. That's a discussion
That's
for another
one.
day.
That's going to screw everything up even more.
All right, so Class A1, we're going to start with the Clarence Red Devils. They're coached by Paul Bergio. He's entering his 6th year as head coach, 30 total years with the program. They went 7-3 last year, and they returned 7 offensive starters, 4 starters on defense. They've already named their captains this year: Tyler Ryan, Zach Wallin, Brandon Zielinski, Dylan Reifenberg, Grayson White, and Brady Quillane. Tom, when you look at Clarence, as we mentioned, coming down to Class A1, what are we kind of looking for them this year?
Well, you got to remember, we're going to see a couple big things. First thing you look at, quarterback's going to change, running back's going to change, right? 2 really good players that were on this team. Remember what Raymond did. We were even talking about Raymond, unbelievable what he did on both sides of the ball, defensively and offensively. And then you were also led by Garrett White, your quarterback, right? So now the question becomes, who steps up and takes those positions, right? And obviously it's in those captains right there that you've already talked about. We're going to see them, but you still got to play it out in the field. I also love the line, right? That's something that Clarence now has been, that absolutely has been a stalemate right there the last couple of years. Watch out. This line's for real. You're going down to the A class. I like Clarence, and I'll tell you, I won't be surprised to see them as one of the teams standing right here.
Yeah, it always seems like Clarence has a solid line. Maybe not a great line, but it's always solid.
Well, last year, remember, they had one of the guys that were up for the Trent, that would have been up for Trent Trophy, right? And he was a big boy, and in fact, everybody was highlighting him going head-to-head with Rashad Perry, if you remember, right? Everyone wanted to see that matchup. In fact, I want to say every Trench Trophy guy was there at that game because they wanted to watch that one.
Yeah, he's certainly a great lineman there. New players, they're wanted to highlight Jefferson Long, Jeremy Connor are transferring from St. Joe's, and then up from the JV, Hayden Arison, Bryce Tubin, Jack Multoon, Corey Cummings, Jack Rushford, and Bryce Hawes. So those are some guys that Coach Bergio is going to be counting on. Some other guys that are returning, I do want to mention David Van Horde, Anthony Magera, Jalen Meyer, Zach Campana, Aiden Schaefer, and Gavin Sutton. So this Clarence team, moving down to Class AA, we think they're going to have a good line, and they should be able to compete in this division.
No, there's no doubt about it. And they're going to, eventually, if you remember, you were led by a senior quarterback. So you did different things, right? But are we going to see them get back to a little bit of basics where you're going to see them run the ball and run the ball often? And they're tough because, they run that double wing. They run a bunch of different things out of there. You never know what you're going to get. They've absolutely started out that. They branched off to different offenses off that double wing. I'll tell you, this is going to be something very interesting that nobody knows what they're going to walk into. I'll tell you, I know Orchard Park gets them right off the bat, right? But I'll tell you, if you don't have film on these guys this year in conference, it's going to be a tough first game to be able to see these guys early on in the season.
You mentioned, they always have a good line. I'm looking at 7 offensive starters. We know Garrett White's gone. We know Scott Raymond's gone. That's 2 there. So you got to think most of the line has got to be coming back.
Which is something that is something very good for Clarence, right? And we talk about this team getting better and better. And I loved last year. Every time I talked to Coach Bergio, they had a positive chip on their shoulder, right? To saying, why can't it be us? Why can't we do this? And his team showed it. They came up in some big victories last year. I like this team. I do think this is going to be a team that we're going to see reckoned with inside this division.
And if memory serves me right, they had Bennett for a half in that first game. They had Bennett for a half. All right, Tom, tell us who our next team is.
So our next team is Frontier, led by Rich Gray. Boy, I was just there. I'll tell you, if you've watched the Falcons right now on social media, they're getting numbers out there, right? They really are. The camps have been phenomenal. And if you listen to the guys that I interviewed, it was all about the offseason. It was all about lifting. It was all about the workouts. There's going to be some positive things, no doubt, that Rich Gray is building down there. He's 10 years as the head coach. Last year, 8-3. Remember, they made it to the finals. Here's the key. Only 2 returners on offense, only 2 returners on defense. So some really big, losses that are out there. Conrad Kreisen, that was probably going to be one of their biggest losses out there that when you look at it. But again, Dylan Mack, Drew Mascio, right? Taylor May, Jack Novak, Austin Lippert. These were all big names of that team last year. But coming back, the key returners, Cole Barber, Nick Gonzalez, Tyler McCluskey, and then new players to watch out for. Bryce Privateer, Zach Rivera, Nick Shea will be some of the big names that we're going to watch out for. I think that I don't think my expectations for Frontier are going to be to make a run to the stadium again. But again, how do you start that, right? You start it because of what you build. And I love what Coach Gray's doing right now down there. He's building a program again. I like what I'm seeing out of Frontier. I'm telling you, I believe Frontier is going to turn into a perennial powerhouse, especially when you see the numbers. We're going to keep hearing from them over and over again. This may be just a building block year to get to where he's going to go.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the numbers. It's important when you have years like this where I don't want to say lightning in a bottle, but they got the right group of guys all, I guess you could say that senior class that just graduated had a bunch of good athletes, were committed, wanted to be football players, and they got some success. And now the program is kind of using that success to bring in more players, bring in younger guys, and you hope that, as you mentioned, that can kind of be the turnaround there. These guys kind of inspired it, and they start the new tradition.
I always look at when you talk about building a program, right? Do you see the head coach down at the modified level? Do you see the head coach working with the Pee Wee programs and all that? And that's exactly what Rich Gray does, which is why you're going to see some special things really happen. Rich, great job. I think you've had a great offseason, and I think you're going to have this team ready to play. Do not take Frontier lightly.
Our next team, the team who defeated the Frontier Falcons in that Class A final, the Jamestown Red Raiders. They're coached by Tom Langworthy. 15 years as head coach, 17 total with the program. They went 7-2. You have it on yours.
7-2. They went 7-2 this past year. They're going to return 5-5 on each side of the ball. 5 offensive starters, 5 defensive starters. But again, you're losing a Jalen Butera. That's your big loss right there, no doubt about it. But you got the Division I quarterback in Trey Drake, who's off to North Dakota State. No doubt, this kid's for real. It's going to be won or lost with his arm this year is where it is. But listen, Jamestown every year has lost some sort of all-Western New York player, some sort of top player, and is retooled all the time, right? So do not think that you're not going to see something special or some new special players come out of Jamestown, because we see it year after year after year. But I'll tell you the one thing that we do see also year after year, the reason why these guys are so good, is that line.
Yeah. I mean, we saw it at the Lions game where they had the 2 linemen there, and you were saying, oh, yeah, they were like mammoth. They stood out.
They stood out for what? Not only how big they were, but they also stood out for how good their play was on the field. It was phenomenal out there. And that's because of what they teach down there and how they're teaching their players and everything they do out there. But listen, I expect this should be a team that will compete, obviously, for this title right here. Key returning players, Trey Drake, Radon Wright, Darius Freeney, Sean O'Brien, Colin Melendez, Carson Penabenko, Mike Barone, Sean Page, Brandon Lobb, Eric Bloomquist, and Brad Bennett.
This is actually, I don't want to take credit here. Frank pointed this out. So the day before, I think it was maybe the day of that Trey Drake committed to North Dakota State, he was at the Sweet Home. He was at Sweet Home for the cross-training athletics camp with his receiver, Darius Freeney. And Frank pointed out he didn't need to be at that camp. He knew where he was going. He went there because he was giving a ride to his buddy, Darius Freeney. That's leadership, going all the way from getting up, 6 in the morning, probably 5 in the morning, and taking your teammate down for this combine. You didn't need it, but you knew your teammate needed it, and you made this sacrifice anyway. I think that's going to go a long way.
Trey Drake's complete class act. Love interviewing the kid, love talking to the kid, love watching. I mean, he truly is a class act. North Dakota State, you got yourself a leader. You got the kid you want behind the helm. I'm telling you, special kid, no doubt about it.
You know what? On that note, I think we're going to...
But before you go, how good is Brockport going to be?
Oh, yeah.
4 out of 5 of the linemen in Jamestown are sitting at Brockport right now. Wow is what I have to say right there. You got yourselves a line there, guys.
As a Buff State alum, I'm pretty jealous right there.
So
I think on that note, then, we will take a break. Come back, we're going to talk about some other teams who have played in AA in the past, some bigger A1 teams. Again, this is the 2022 Class A1 football preview on WNY Athletics.
Our homes have become offices, gyms, schools, and playgrounds. And at Western New York Immediate Care, we know you may need us now more than ever. Whether you've suffered a minor injury or just aren't feeling well, Western New York Immediate Care physicians are trained to diagnose and treat most non-life-threatening injuries and illnesses. With 5 convenient locations open 7 days a week, help is never far away. Life has changed, but Western New York Immediate Care is still here for you.
I love being home.
There's nothing better than owning the perfect house to come home to. You've earned it, and we'll make it happen. Our local real estate experts and in-house team of financial professionals make buying or selling your home simple. Howard Hanna. Home happens here.
I love being home.
Welcome back. This is the 2022 Class A1 football preview. I'm Francis Beck, joined by Tom Prince. Let's jump back into it. We're going to head up to Niagara County and talk about the Lockport Lions. Trey Smith returns as head coach 4 years. He's been with the program for 26 years. They last year went 4-5 last year, so just under 500. They were 3-2 back in that 2020 COVID spring year. They bring up a team that went 5-3 in JV. They returned 7 offensive starters, 6 on defense. They lose a couple of guys, including the receiver Logan Went, who went to Cortland. Anthony Molinaro, believe this, went to Lockport. So they put out some good products. And unfortunately, we just found out they lost their quarterback, Jason Green.
And he was putting up some big numbers.
Yeah.
He really was. And that's, I hate to say it, a huge loss. Listen, but when you bring back a 3-year starter, right? I mean, who did get nominated for the Conley Cup on multiple times, no doubt you're losing a major leader on that team, and that will be a tough loss. There's no doubt about it.
So it is believed right now that Taki West will slip into that quarterback spot. Other key returning players on the line, you have Chase Stuvak, James Weaver, Colton Kuzma, and then they bring back going to be skill player Ray Gilly, who could play running back, wide receiver, linebacker, and then some new players they want to keep an eye on: Shea Williams, Trey Thompson, and Tristan Gimbel. Coming back for the Lions.
But if I am Lockport, what I do like is I got 3 returning players for that line, both on the offensive line, defensive line. That is a core that I really want to at least be able to hopefully get my quarterback some time to maybe I'll make some plays.
And you know what? We know this. You know, we just talked about Logan Went. He went to Cortland. They have athletes up there in Lockport, and you know, if you mentioned it, that line can make some holes, and maybe it's Ray Gilly coming back, or maybe it's one of these new players that Coach Strait told us about. You know, he can hit some holes, and you talk about this is a competitive team, and they can give someone a scare.
We watched their wide receivers put up some big numbers last year, if you remember. In fact, we were watching at one point. We were talking about the Evans-Macabelli matchup last year. Those two, they had the same thing here in Lockport, right? They were going back forth. It was like the 4 top receivers were coming out of either Orchard Park or Lockport for the first couple of weeks right there. It was a race to see which guy was going to actually be in first after a while.
Yeah, I know. That was that offense was amazing. And who knows what they can do without Green, it sucks for them that they lose their player, but I think those kids are going to come together, and I think they could still have they could have a decent year. They could still put up some offense. You said, again, the line is coming back. If you get the right lineman, you can do a lot of things.
No doubt. And I always say games are won and lost in the trenches is where it is, right? Right now it's about snaps, right? They need to get their quarterback snaps right now, which obviously didn't happen in the offseason because they thought they had their quarterback. So it's about getting their new quarterback snaps and get him adjusted right now with their wide receivers.
Tom, we're going to stay in Niagara County with our next team. Who do we have coming up next?
Oh, wow. We got new head coach. We talk about him all the time. Eric O'Brien, first-year head coach, but this is not a first-year head coach, period, right? Here's the basketball coach. Just took his team to a sectional final. True leader. You see all over social media how much they love playing for Coach O'Brien. And now he's going to bring it over to the football team. Love what he's doing up at Niagara Wheatfield.
And we should mention that he's not a new football coach either. He's been with that North Tonawanda program and assistant coach for a long time. So he knows the gridiron very well, and he hopes to be bringing that together. He brings, I believe, was he his point guard? Was he his point guard too?
Oh, yeah, Xander Fletcher. He's bringing Xander Fletcher, which is one of the top quarterbacks in the area. But again, you want to talk about a true leader is what's out there. He does it on the basketball court. He does the same thing out on the football field. He's capable of a player who you probably, if you wanted to make that comparison to, Trey Kleitz, right? Is that type of player what it is?
An athlete.
Well, no, it's exact sports, right? From the basketball court to the football field, same positions, right? Same leader, generals, could play either sport at the next level. Where's they going to go? It'll be up to them what they decide.
You mean you don't decide, Tom?
No. Maybe they'll come for some advice. No, I'm teasing, right? No, But Xander Fletcher, no doubt, was a leader. When you got 13 returning starters, this is a team that could really cause some damage, especially with their head coach. Sean Watson, another two-way player. He's at wide receiver. Zach Smith, center. Casey Robinson, defensive tackle. Tashawn Matthews, running back linebacker. And now Alex Darlak, wide receiver.
And I believe Matthews led the team in rushing last year, if my memory serves me right.
So look at that. I mean, you got some linemen right there, right? You got your center exchange with your quarterback back. And then you're adding players Dylan Pringle, Adam Kyler, Christian Turner, another offensive tackle, and Evan Belter, the cornerback. I'm telling you, if you sleep on this Niagara Wheatfield team, watch out. You're going to be down by 2 touchdowns before you actually blink an eye. There are some big things I think that are going to come out of Niagara Wheatfield.
Yeah, and you think with O'Brien coming over, from the basketball team, you also got to think, a program that's been kind of down for a while. He gives them a new confidence, in themselves, the people, I guess I don't want to just say parents, but I mean, the community knows this guy knows these kids. He knows how to build a winner. And I think they should give him a little bit of a leash there to help build this program. Maybe they can't quite get there this year, although I think they could. They only won one game last year, but they could put up a lot of damage.
You got some key members here. I'm not going to say that. I think they're going to be in the mix right here. And now remember, we talked about it with Lancaster. What did we say? Coaches, by the way, that's one of the biggest keys to their success, right? We talked about it with Hutch Tech, getting the man that they want for the job right there, right? We talked about it with Coach Cieslik in Orchard Park, right? Bennett knows they got their man in Coach McDuffie, right? It doesn't matter who it is. We talk about the coaches leading the way. They got their man right now in Niagara Wheatfield. There's no doubt they got their man right now. Watch out. Niagara Wheatfield's going to be a tough team.
On that note, why don't we take our final break before we get back to our final team? You're watching the Class A1 football preview on WNY Athletics.
Avoiding care can lead to worse problems. Don't delay care. We're here for you. Western New York Immediate Care provides quick, quality care for non-emergent injuries and illnesses. Go to WNYimmediatecare.com for more information.
Logistics Plus is a global transportation provider headquartered in Erie, PA, with locations worldwide, including right here in Western New York. Logistics Plus is consistently recognized as a fast-growing transportation and logistics company, great supply chain partner, top freight broker, leading project cargo manager, and a great place to work. With a strong passion for excellence, our 500-plus employees put the plus in logistics. Call our Buffalo office today for an efficient, personal approach for all of your transportation needs.
Welcome back on this 2022 Class A1 preview football show. Francis Beck, joined by Tom Prince. Our final team now is going to be the Williamsville North Spartans. They're led by Coach Paul Piazzi. He's entering his second year as head coach. He's been with the program, though, for 15 years. They went 4-5 last year, but they returned 8 starters on offense, 7 on defense. Their key returner, Kendall Donovan, we'll get into more later. He actually ran the fastest 40 at the Sweet Home Combine I was talking about, cross-training. I believe he ran a 4.440. So he's a pretty fast kid. You know, he's getting faster. So the question is, can they take advantage of his speed and turn that into wins?
Remember, 4-5 in AA last year, so they will be one of the teams that drops a division right here. They're joining Clarence in the drop right here, where Frontier has already dropped, Jamestown has already dropped, right? So they're in that, but this will be the first time inside this division right here. Listen, this is all going to boil down to is you got a running back right here. There's no doubt about it, right? The question is, will your line give you the time to be able to open up the holes that need to get opened up so you can make your fantastic plays? We've seen this. We've seen him do it last year, right? He is very capable of putting up some big yards and very capable of doing some damage out here in this conference. To me, it just boils down to is, again, the trench war, right? Is this line ready to help to be able to give him the time he needs to do to make the cuts and make the runs through those holes?
All right, some other key returning players: Mitch Kelly, Ethan and Noah Sternum, Evan Locke, DJ Leonard, Jordan Furby, and Matt McKenna. Key new player coach wants us to keep an eye out for is Jacob Lozo. So that is your Williamsville North Spartans.
15 returners, right? Again, a very big return team. That, to me, is the telltale sign. You got a lot of things in place. That line should be a lot of returners right there. But this is key. This is one of the most veteran teams inside the division. Watch out. This Will North team will be right there in the mix.
So, Tom, before we wrap things up, we talked about all these teams. Let me just pull up again who our A1 teams are. You can see them on your screen. Lockport, Jamestown, Clarence, Frontier, Will North, and Niagara Wakefield. Tom, what's your outlook on A1?
I say this over and over again. Doesn't matter whether it's year to year. Until you knock off the big dogs, you got to give the big dogs right now their due. I wouldn't bet against Jamestown. And they prove it year after year after year in this sport. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is a monster division, right? This really is. Clarence, I think, is going to be right there in the mix. I do believe Will North, with what's returning, is going to be right there in the mix. You know, I like what Frontier's building right down there. If you count Niagara Wheatfield with what they're capable of doing because they're bringing back so many weapons offensively, watch out. And then Lockport, if they figure out right now their quarterback, you never know what's going to happen there. They've got a lot of speed. They've got a lot of, players that can make an impact on that team. This is a very, very tough division where you're not going to be able to sleep from one game to the other. Every game is going to be a game that you better make sure you're ready to play.
So in A, there are 3 divisions this year, meaning the top 2 teams in each division, you automatically get in. And then there's those 2 wild card spots for the third-place teams. So the third-place teams will battle it out for 2 spots. So I think, I feel like you're pretty safe to say Jamestown is going to get, at least win their division. I mean, they're the favorite to win.
It is, but you have a hiccup, an injury, something crazy. Anything can happen here, right? Because we do think Clarence is going to be right there. We think Will North is going to be right there, right? What happens if Niagara Wheatfield gels like they're capable of doing with all the returners they have? Anything can happen inside this division. I think that what I safe to say is that I think Jamestown has just always been there year after year, that you got to think they're going to be there.
I think so, too. I think you have a hard time Yeah, I think Jamestown is the favorite. And, as you mentioned, anything can happen. But with Trey Drake and all that momentum that's been building up for really the past 3 years, even going back to what they've done a little bit in Double-A, I have a hard time believing that they're not at least going to be in the playoffs this year.
And look at that schedule they got. So that schedule you just saw they had, right? Then you add non-conference games against Lancaster and Orchard Park mixed in there. Trust me, they got the gauntlet right now that Jamestown's going through.
And you know what? That's going to prepare them for the playoffs. And if they're able to make it back to the state playoffs, that's even going to help even more. So that will wrap it up for us on this 2022 Class A1 preview. So stay tuned, though, all preseason long and all season long for more high school football coverage and more high school sports coverage right here on Western New York Athletics.